I am here once again with Scott.
Hello everybody.
Lovely to have you back, man.
Thank you. Lovely to be back.
I know it's been a crazy couple of weeks and all kinds of stuff has been going on for you, but yeah, I'm glad you can. Glad that this every 3 weeks seems to be working for you.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to be back. On the cushion, in front of the camera.
Oh yeah, it's all happening.
Last one for the year for me.
Yep.
Maybe one more for the year in total.
Yeah, one more for me next week. And then New Year, which will be pretty cool.
Already.
I know, pretty insane to think about, really, isn't it?
Can't believe it.
Yep, that's all happened.
Feels like that, doesn't it?
Hi Prue, thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Prue.
Cool. So we're going to be talking about play this evening. As you know, anyone who's clicked on this video has probably inferred from the title.
Yeah. We might have a bit of a play around with it.
Yeah, play around with that concept.
Very good. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that even if nobody else
probably
did.
Not as much as I did. Alright, well we'll probably start, I guess it is a Thursday and we do have a pretty cool topic to speak about. And since both of us are here, it'll be pretty cool, I imagine, to just start the way we generally start our Thursday evenings, with a nice little silent meditation. To tack on to the silent meditation that Scott and I just did just before as well. This time you guys can join in. So as with previous times, you're welcome to incorporate any. Basically, we're going to sit in silence for 7 minutes. There'll be a bell at the start and a bell at the end, and during that time you're welcome to use any breath, meditation, observation techniques that you like to employ. But there is also the invitation, if you are unfamiliar with any of those, or if you would just like to try something different and play with something new, to just sit and observe all of the many things that can arise when you stop and just sit in silence for a few minutes.
And maybe just one extra rule for tonight.
Ooh.
No serious meditation.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. Great, I'm down with that.
No serious meditation for the next 7 minutes. This is our session on play.
Cool.
Take it easy. Be light.
Alright, I'm down with that.
Don't be too hard on. No one being too serious, too hard on themselves with any technique.
No serious.
In the play session, not allowed.
Yeah. Seriously, no seriousness.
Correct.
Alright.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. We'll see you guys in 7 minutes. Thanks for that, everybody. Thanks,
Very
Scott.
good. Thank you, Jack. Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah, thanks, YouTube. So, play. That is our topic for the evening.
It is.
It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and maybe to start us off, Jack, you want to give us a little bit of context to like what do we mean when we talk about play? What are we talking about? And why are we talking about it?
Great question. Actually, that's a really good question. I love that question. That's such a good question. So when I guess for me, when I talk about play, I think about basically like having fun with something and letting it kind of unfold a bit more organically, which is, I guess, something we've talked about quite a bit in doing these.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess when I talk about play, I guess I think about taking things, doing something without without a level of seriousness. So kind of like being a bit more lighthearted about it, a bit easier about how things actually end up going, and kind of being involved with something or doing something more for the sake of doing it than for a specific outcome at the end. Kind of just, it's almost like the outcome is kind of irrelevant in the face of the just presence and enjoyment of the thing itself, regardless of what that might be.
Yeah, nice. Cool. I like that a lot. And it reminds me of aspects of other conversations that we've had along this way, and I really like it as well in the context of these conversations, right? Because these are a sort of meditation, but also, other various techniques and things like that. But it's like sometimes when we talk about meditation, it's like, we're going to do it because it's going to help us, and we're thinking about goals and thinking about outcomes. But at the end of the day, our outcome is to enjoy ourselves more. So that's something that we do in the moment. So we want to be able to
enjoy myself.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And so I feel like in some ways this like state of playfulness, it kind of almost feels like it's both a tool and the part of the goal, and so it makes a lot of sense, I guess, to talk about it directly, and acknowledge that this sense of lightness, maybe, a sense of like lightness, playfulness.
Yeah, it's an interesting, good one, because I think it's at least in my experience of it, and what I think a lot of people probably experience as well, is like we obviously as kids we play a lot, we play all the time. We make up games and do all kinds of especially from like an adult's perspective, kind of crazy stuff. But we do that really to learn about the world, and just through play and through the creation of stories and just exploring different things, whether that's either on our own or with others. It's through play that we actually learn how to interact with the world in a way that's meaningful and a way that works, and hopefully works well, to keep us, ideally alive to begin with, but also allows us to connect with other people, to get along with other human beings, and to have them work with us in a way that is beneficial for both of us, or all of us, in to take it even more broadly. And I think it's it's one of those things that is really, really valuable, because it's and physiologically as well, when we're in a state when we're playing, we are, especially and this is a huge part of for kids especially, when we're playing, our neuroplasticity is much, much higher, so our brain's able to form new pathways much more quickly, and they're able to stay that way much more easily.
Fascinating.
So our creativity and innovative capacities are much, much higher when we introduce this idea to whatever we're doing.
Right. Well, isn't that a thing? Isn't that interesting? Hey, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So interesting. And it also I guess makes me think of when we're talking about how we learn things. We play a lot as kids, and it's a big part of how we learn. It's like if we didn't play as kids, then there's all of these things that we'd be doing for the first time for real. But when we're playing, it gives us a chance to like kind of imagine and make believe and sort of, you know, get a feel for it when the stakes are low.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Because
Right?
when you're baking mud pies, you can't really like light the kitchen on fire.
Yeah.
Depends on what sort of like fake stove your parents are giving you. But like for the most part, you know? And I suppose that's something that this idea that you can kind of see really clearly with kids, that like by mimicking what they see adults doing and then like playing and then, you know, coming like playing around with these ideas, it gives them a way to start learning about it and experiencing it while it doesn't really matter what the outcome is, and it's this tool for learning. But then when we grow up, sometimes we start just doing everything for real all the time, and we lose this time spent doing things in a way where we're like, cool, we're just going to play with this, we're going to try it out, doesn't matter what happens, it doesn't have an outcome in mind, which allows us to expand and grow and learn. Because stakes are lower. It's probably a big part of why we're like, you know, less stressed. That neuroplasticity, as you said, is higher, and then we're able to keep learning really easily.
Yeah, it's a really I think that's a great way of looking at it too. And I think it's quite interesting. I love the idea of like that you're speaking, the idea of like keeping the stakes low, because that's a really great way to, you know, not be super serious about something. It's kind of like, yeah, cool. It kind of like doesn't matter too much if I mess this up. It's not a huge deal. Like the world's not going to end, or I'm not going to, you know, like I'm not going to like lose this friendship or this connection or whatever, or I'm not going to, you know, like there's not going to be like a whole bunch of real, like serious real world consequences as a result of me, like, you know, just having a go at this thing. And that can be hard to like, sometimes can like be hard for people to remember, in like for us to remember as adults. And I think it's a great like kind of way that you put that as well, was that the idea of like as we tend to just like kind of like put the like playing part to the side and just go and do everything for real the first, like straight off the bat. And that's obviously like quite, well, I mean, to me that seems like it would be obvious that it would be quite anxiety inducing, and there would be a whole bunch of like negative emotional repercussions for that. So it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to try this thing that I've never done before in a really high stakes environment where there are like, you know, either like seriously the personal or social or, you know, maybe even like financial, like or whatever repercussions if I don't get it exactly right. And I've never done it before, so I don't know how to do it.
And then I'm wondering why I'm anxious.
And like so you don't, like we don't have a point of reference, and you know the outcome is important, and you know like having done something before doesn't necessarily make doing it again in a higher stakes environment doesn't make the outcome less important, but it does bring us. But if we've like played with something before, we have a couple of reps there, for argument's sake.
Yeah.
We have a bit of an idea of what to do and what that feels like and how to actually navigate those situations. And so we can go into them with a bit more like, okay, cool, well, like I've done it before, so I can do it again. And I did it before and I didn't die, so I can probably do it again and not die again, right? And like that's particularly like as a really base nervous system response, that's really important. Because like our fight and flight response is basically designed to keep us alive. And a lot of the time we don't have those immediate threats these days, so that's, you know, good, but also want to make sure you're not activating that for the wrong things.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, I like that.
It's a fun concept, huh?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I'm just thinking.
No, that's great. That's good. I'm glad it's like making your mind. It's kind of fun, isn't it? Like when you like play with things.
Yeah.
Because that's like another piece I wanted to kind of talk about with this, is the idea of like engagement, and how bringing an element of play to the things that we're doing can make them more engaging, and more fun. Like for example, one of the ways that I do this is I like to make like my routines and rituals and habits into a game. And if I make it a game, I 100% do them pretty much every time. I actually get like excited and really like want to do the things that I arguably I'm telling myself I should be doing, because
Yeah.
I've made it, because I'm not telling myself, because in those moments I'm not telling myself I should do it, I've made it fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of set it up for myself as this, almost like playing a video game but in real life,
Mm-hmm.
is the way I like to think about it.
Can you give us an example of one of these kind of gamified type constructs that's come out of the mind of Jack?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Please share. I think that'll be valuable to hear an example, you know?
Yeah, I would love to. So when I was younger, and like still to this day, I suppose I just don't do it as much, or like really at all. But when I was younger, I really loved role-playing games, especially on like computers and stuff like that, or the consoles or whatever. You know, you get to be the character, and you get to run around, and you get to fight all the bad guys, and like get all the cool equipment and level up your stats and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's good fun, right? Like you get to be like a superhero of some kind. And one of the ways that I like to do that is like, okay, cool. Like if I like say I want to exercise, I'm like, cool, what's that doing? That's building my strength. That's building my stamina. That's building my flexibility. And so I like internally kind of convert those to cool. Like every time I do a workout, I get like +1 or +2 to these stats. every time I like, you know, make a PB or something like that, that's like a level up. And I do like just make little kind of switches like that. Like cool. Like it's been an interesting process of translating that to real life. It's like that's what all of those games are modeled off. Really, like they're all modeled off what it's like, you know, of like actual kind of traits and things like that we can recognize. That's how we recognize them and know that, oh yeah, cool. It's important to be like dexterous. Yeah. Because that means you're like nimble and you can move quickly and do all of these things. And so yeah, just like cool. Like how do you do? Like how does one do that in real life? And I like incorporate activities that build those things. Like cool. I'm just like leveling up, but in real life.
No, there's like a circular thing that's going on there, because it's like in these games, right? They've got your stats, which they've taken from these characteristics or qualities of a real person, and then they've obviously like named them and then given them numbers in a way to represent them in a game, because you can't feel how strong the pixels on the screen are.
Totally, it's all represented by numbers.
And then now you've taken that back around to take that like those metrics, I suppose, those numbers, to like allow you to like, I suppose, motivate and feel that progress, maybe in a way that you can engage with it intellectually, to help motivate you towards doing the work that's required, so that you really feel it physically, right? Because that sometimes takes a little bit longer.
100%.
Nice.
Love it. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think one of the things that I've like enjoyed the most about looking at things like this is that it's made me realize that life is a lot richer than like any video game arguably can be, because there are you know, like kind of fixed ways to do things in a game. Like you have to do X, Y, or Z to make X result happen. In the real world, there are millions of ways that you can do all of those things. Like for example, like if I wanted to like I don't know, raise my intellect and like, you know, so I get smarter, then all I would, like, you know, I can read a book, I can go and study something, I can have a conversation with somebody. Like there are just so many different ways for me to do that. Whereas in a game, it's like you have to go and do this thing, or like acquire this piece of gear or whatever.
You've got to find the blue potion.
You've got to find the blue potion.
Not the red one. That's
not
strength.
The red one. Exactly. Right? Like there are only like really specific things that can do that. Whereas you have a lot more freedom. Yeah. A lot more freedom to play with that in the real world. It's like, cool. Like, and so like I just really enjoy approaching things in this way, because it makes them fun and engaging, and it means that I stick with the things that I want to do.
Yeah, and it brings to mind, I suppose, this really interesting, like, how do I want to frame this? This phenomenon, I suppose, or this thing that's happening where it's like this desire for play and this desire for this kind of like lightness of experience is really deeply entrenched in like the psyche, you know, in the nature of being a human, in the nature of, I suppose, probably being a mammal, you could probably say. And in a world where a lot of people start to lose it, or don't have access to that easily anymore, more and more people do turn into things like video games and things like that, right? Because that, and maybe that's part of the draw of it for some people, because that's creating a space where they can kind of access some of those feelings, that kind of like feeling a bit lighter, because in the real world it's not always that easy. You know, and that maybe that's, I don't know, that by trying to cultivate that approach and that philosophy towards our actual lives, that, you know, it creates more space for us to then, you know, step away from things like that, and engage more with the real world.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, I think a huge part of it is that, like, I mean, look, a lot of those games are modeled off like such, like things like the hero's journey, archetypal story, right? And I think it's very easy, especially when you take out play and you get really fixed at when we get really fixated on, oh, I don't have the same thing, like I don't have the same things that you have, therefore my story isn't as good as your story, or like, you know, like you're better than me or whatever, and we become really dissatisfied by like comparing ourselves to others. That kind of like, creates this kind of, can create this kind of desire to like, kind of withdraw from that. Because I think part of like doing this, one of the things that I had to like realize and like notice and build into the way that I see things, is that you're like, you set your own and it's one of the cool things, but also one of the like perhaps potentially daunting things is that you got to set your own metrics. So it's not like, there's not like an achievement list for you to, there's no pre-written achievement list for you to like tick off all of the things. There's no like level cap or anything like that. It's all whatever you decide what it is to be. Like, so you have to write your own achievement list, which is basically like your goals in life, really. Like, what are the things that you want to achieve? How are you going to know that you're moving towards those things? What are you going to like measure the quality of your life by? You are the one who decides all of those things. It's not like arbitrarily given to you. And I think that's one of the things that makes those kind of games so interesting and like engaging as well, is that it's all just like laid out. You can just jump in and go, and all you have to do is be there and be present with it, and just keep doing it.
Yeah, definitely. The endless choice, positives and negatives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like when you have endless choice, it's really, as we do, it's kind of, it's pretty daunting. Having heaps and heaps and heaps of choices doesn't necessarily make it easier to make them.
Yeah.
Hi Ritesh, thanks for jumping on, by the way.
Hi mate, good to see you again. And so the next point that we're thinking about talking about before is that the way that play helps us with performance.
Yeah, which is which I think is probably like a reasonable, like a not unreasonable segue actually. Because I've been like kind of encountering this idea a little bit lately as well, which I think is tied to what we were talking about before with the neuroplasticity stuff, is that being in a state of play, well, like when we're playing, like one of the key aspects of playing is that we're in the present. And that means we're not like worrying about the future, and we're not stuck in the past either. We're here in the moment, which is coincidentally also like, which is almost the same as being in a state of flow. They're very, very similar, and like one can very easily transition to another. In fact, a really good way to get into a flow state is to play certain kinds of games. You can do it really, really quickly.
Cool.
By playing these particular games, and they like just put you up into a really great flow state. But yeah, one of the kind of like characteristics of play is like, even if there's a point of the game, is that whatever game it is you're playing, you are in the moment. You're not thinking about You're responding to what's happening in the moment. You're not thinking about what's going to happen next or what's going to happen in like down the line. And one of the things that's really cool about that is this kind of like, this relaxed detachment that we were talking about. Like, that there's like a point to the game. There's something you're kind of working towards, but you don't have to be. But you kind of like, you're kind of like playing the game for this. Like when you're playing for the sake of playing, not because you want to get somewhere. At least when you're genuinely playing anyway. And that gives you the flexibility to move with what is like with whatever stimulus is coming in at the time, and gives you like the opportunity to kind of like really perform at your best. So that's the state that like really high level athletes want to be in when they're playing a game, like playing their game, or like running a race or whatever it happens to be. You want to be in a state of flow, because if you're having to think about where you're putting your feet or how you're breathing or anything like that, if you're thinking, then you have to slow down to do that. You have to slow down massively to bring your attention to focus your attention on your conscious thoughts. It hugely reduces your reaction time. And so you want to kind of like avoid that as much as possible.
Cool. Yeah. It's interesting how this mindset that is about not taking things too seriously actually leads to achieving the goals that you might have if you were taking things seriously.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic.
This is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, really. Like, the more seriously you take things, the less likely you are for them to go well and smoothly. And like, funnily enough, the less seriously you take things, and the more fun you allow yourself to have with whatever it is you're doing, the more you allow yourself to enjoy it, the easier and more effortless it continues to become.
Cool. Sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty sick, really.
Love it.
And there have been studies to show that being like, spending a lot of time in this and being in the flow state and like basically engaging with this kind of thing has massive health benefits. It's really, really good. Well, for starters, it massively reduces depression, anxiety, and stress.
I'm sold.
Huge down-regulating effects on all of those things. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Cool.
And it also can lead, like the more time you spend there, it can actually increase your life expectancy.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
love it.
Play around. It's a good time.
Let's go play. Well, maybe that's a good time to seg into a little bit of a chat of like how can we do this? How do we get playful? How do we cultivate these states of mind in all sorts of different ways? I suppose, like, what are your ideas? I have one or two as well that I can maybe throw in. But yeah, like what do you like? What are the sort of ideas and techniques and ways in which people can try to accent some of this and get these wonderful play benefits? Less stress, anxiety, depression, live longer. Get some of these in our lives.
Yeah. The first one that kind of comes to mind is there's a couple of different parts, but one of them is to, like what you were saying before about lowering the stakes. Like, do trial runs, but do them, or create mini versions of the thing that you want to be doing. It's like, that's what training is, right? Like, a lot of the time you slow the things down, you break up the patterns, you do like for example, if you're training for soccer, you run drills, you do all of those kinds of things so that they become really automatic, and you play friendly games, so that when it comes to crunch time, you can just be there, and that's all on automatic. You get those things kind of happening really easily. I guess that's another part, is another way is to kind of see how much you can slow it down. See how much you can slow things down, and how present you can be with doing the thing really slowly, how much you can kind of pull it apart and really have a good look inside and see what's really there. And I think another way is just to kind of bring the intention to have a bit of fun with it. To just come to things to to come to things with an idea or like with the intention to be open to whatever might happen. Like, yes, cool, I would like this thing to happen, but to like let go of all of your cherished outcomes. Like, don't worry so much about them. And it's like, yeah, it's cool, I want this. I think we were talking about this in another context.
Previously
as well.
Letting go is our last one together.
Yeah, like I want this thing, but it's okay if it doesn't work out that way. Like, I'm still just going to do the thing because the thing is what, like, it's that's I think where the idea of doing the thing for its own sake is kind of really important.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, nice. They all sound they all sound good. Like, you know, nice and actionable as well, you know.
What about you? You said you had a couple of
So there's one that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
I know I said no being serious earlier, but maybe this is a bit serious for the play one. But again, sometimes
let's take it all with a grain of salt, right?
Like being playful helps us to achieve the serious things in life. So maybe sometimes thinking about serious things can help us to be playful. And so one thing that pops into my mind is like this idea of play and having a playful attitude and trying to apply this to like everything in our life, you know. It's like you'll know that there are some people, and when they're doing their job and everything's really serious, I've got to do this and this doesn't go well and it really hurts, and then you might meet someone else and as they're doing the same job and they've got that attitude of like, it's cool, we're going to do the best we can, I'm going to try just equally as hard, but if it doesn't work out the way that we want, that's okay, you know. And like cultivating, this kind of attitude generally sometimes to cultivate. And this thought of a way that comes into my mind, and maybe this just like is a sign of some of the things that I've been reading recently, is it's easier to not worry about the outcomes of any small things when you know what's going to happen at the end, you know? It's like, if you've seen the movie before, you're not so worried about what happens when someone's when the main character's in trouble in the middle.
Or when someone's like chewing really loudly or playing on their phone really loudly or having a conversation while you're trying to pay attention. Yeah,
you know, it's easier to keep this in any circumstance where we know what's going to happen at the end. It's a bit easier to stay playful. And so this idea we can bring in some ways to life, and this is something that's in some spiritual traditions. And so what is going to happen at the end? You're going to die. Sorry, Jack. Sorry, anyone watching.
I love it, man.
But we are all careening slowly, hopefully, towards our demise. And by acknowledging and spending some time sometimes sitting with this, and this is a key Buddhist practice, so, you know, this is probably something my mind's been out a little bit. What it actually does is it brings a lightness to everything else, because we stop denying this quite challenging truth, you know, the idea of death, not overly comfortable, not the easiest thing to deal with, but it's real for everybody. It's the most certain thing in life. And
perhaps the only one.
And so by spending time thinking about this and actually sitting with that feeling and acknowledging it and starting to understand it, what it actually does is then completely flips our frame of reference for life, because we're now, by starting to understand that it does end. What happens afterwards? Well, that's a question mark. There's all, you know, different people have different ideas there, but this one does come to an end, and that if we actually stop ignoring that, allow our mind to like contemplate that reality, that then what it actually does is brings lightness through to everything in life. Because this kind of scary hole at the end that we worry about, if we don't do this work, don't kind of acknowledge this and sit with this, then once we do it, then everything else starts to feel a little bit more like a game, you know, and it's a little bit easier to be a bit more playful and lighthearted. And so that is a tool that is maybe not for everybody. There's a bit of work in there. It's not the most comfortable thing necessarily to sit there and contemplate it, but it does really, and one of my experiences really, because this is work that I've sort of spent time doing, is that is a a really useful and really effective tool for cultivating a much lighter frame of mind, and a more playful frame of mind. And I feel that's definitely something that's really helped me.
Cool.
So yeah, that's my one. Think about death, and then you can play.
Yeah, I like it, man. That's really, really cool. I mean, that's the great thing about like looking at things as a video game too, because if you die in a video game, you just come back to life, and it's fine.
Exactly.
So don't worry about
Exactly.
it.
And who knows? Maybe that's what happens in real life as well.
Who knows?
Yeah, you know.
What do you know? There's one way to find out.
There are some fairly accomplished people who have suggested that's how it works.
Indeed.
Could be. Wouldn't that be a joke? We all live in this modern society, right? I'm going to go on a slight diatribe now that we're talking
Go
about
on, man.
But we live in this modern society, and we're all really smart, and we've got all the things, and we're really intellectual and scientific, and our whole culture is built on this premise, or at least for a lot of people, on this idea that consciousness comes from the mind, comes from the brain. Sorry, mind comes from brain, and that when the brain dies, the mind dies. But pretty much every tradition before our super smart new one had different ideas. And so many of us, I did it for years. We went by on this thing, this is our one shot. Imagine just imagine what it's like if that's the jokes on all of us. All of those of us, because I know there are plenty of people who have all sorts of many different views, but all of the super smart atheist scientific types, and a lot of them are in powerful positions of the world. Joke's on us. You're just back next time. I'm doing it for millennia. What the man? Hilarious. I guess people do talk about the great cosmic joke.
Yeah, and quite possibly is it, huh?
Yeah. I have a close friend. I'm really going off on a tangent now.
That's great,
and
man.
we were talking about this, and he's like, nah, rebirth, reincarnation, absolutely no way. And he's like, I can't imagine the thought of having to do this again. Awful. Life's too hard. Life's too challenging. And he was telling me this after he'd gotten stuck into someone, letting them know how silly they were for believing in heaven or something. And I have this image that lives in my mind of him being born again, and with still remembering what he knows now, and just going, oh shit, are you fucking kidding me?
Nice. Maybe that's why we come out of the womb crying.
Oh no, not again. Thought I made it. Damn. Alright, tangent over. Back to play.
That was pretty fun, man. I think it's a fun place to go with it, right? And it's always I think it's interesting and just kind of important to bring a bit of just a bit of lightness to all of these concepts that can sometimes seem quite heavy and quite can be quite a big thing for a lot of people. I know a lot of my teachers, not in quite the same context, but whenever we've been doing, because I've done a lot of internal work and just ripping apart my whole internal world and rebuilding it from the ground up. It's been great fun, but one of the really interesting ways that they've always phrased anything pretty much before we've gone and dug into some really deep emotional or psychological patterns is just by framing the whole thing as we're just gonna play and see what happens. And that is a really good way to just invite yourself to be a bit more lighthearted about it, be a bit more flexible about it, be a little bit more open to whatever it is. Because it's ultimately that's all it is. It's just we're just playing a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are there are parameters and all of those kinds of things, and that's fine. That's kind of what makes it fun. Because if you could just do anything whenever, all the time, and everything all the time, then you would just be doing everything all the time, and that wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even get to experience it.
You would know.
It's like that. Actually, I'm not sure if this is a Buddhist one or from somewhere else, but it's that whole idea of a being that is omnipotent, omnipresent, and all powerful. What does such a being lack? Limitation. And so, if you're everywhere all the time with the ability to do everything, you don't experience anything.
Interesting.
Because you're everywhere all the time. There's no story. There's no journey. There's nothing.
So.
There's no fun there.
Yeah, I guess so. I have to sit with that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And, you can bend your brain around that.
Yeah, I feel like it's twisted around a bit. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
No problem.
How you feeling? Shall we meditate?
I think we shall meditate. Indeed, we shall. Yeah, because we've gone on some pretty interesting tangents tonight.
Sorry.
No, not at all. I have too. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have too. But we have been on some interesting tangents, and we have been talking for quite a while. And it is kind of like getting on in the evening on this Thursday evening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably a good time to think about maybe getting ourselves comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps resetting our postures a little bit and beginning to close down our eyes and bring our attention into the inside for just a few minutes. Perhaps you'd like to relax your shoulders and face. You might feel your breath deepen as it moves in and out of your body. Notice the physical weight and presence of your body, sitting or lying, wherever it is you find yourself. Feel your clothing wrapping around your skin. Any subtle movements in the air. That's it. As you just continue to notice your breath and the sensations in your body, and follow them down, deeply down on the inside. And just notice the things you can hear in the environment around you. Perhaps there's birds singing outside, or maybe the sound of traffic in the background. Perhaps the ding of a tram as it clacks on by, or the ticking of a clock. As it counts down time. Can you hear yourself breathing? Can you hear your heart beating? As you continue to drift down, deeply down on the inside. That's right. And I would like to invite you to recall a specific time. A specific time in the past when you were able to play freely and without inhibition. Enjoying yourself in the particular way that you were enjoying yourself. Bring this specific time when you were playing to mind. And notice the things that you notice about this specific time. See the sights that you can see. Hear the sounds that you can hear. Feel the feelings you can feel. Smell the smells that you can smell. And taste the tastes that you can taste. As you continue to immerse yourself in this specific time, and you allowed yourself to play. And let's invite you now to play with this specific memory. And just notice what happens as we play with certain parts of this, knowing that you can return everything exactly as it was if it doesn't feel like the thing that's right for you. And as you play in this particular specific experience, just notice what happens if you take all the colors and make them all blue. Make all the colors in this experience certain shades of blue. And notice what, if anything, changes about this experience. As you now change those colors to particular shades of red, wash this whole experience in particular shades of red. Just noticing what, if anything, changes about this experience. As you now change these colors to yellow, change all experience to the colour yellow as you continue to play in this experience. And put all the colours back as they were now, restoring this specific experience to its original form. And now take all the colours and make them even brighter. What happens to this experience when all the colours become brighter and more vibrant? And notice now what happens when you take the colours out and make the experience black and white. Notice what happens to this experience when you see it in black and white. And now restore all the colours and bring this specific experience back to its original form. And just notice what happens to notice the things that you notice. If you bring this experience right up to your face, bring this experience so close that it's almost touching your nose. And notice what happens now when you move this experience all the way back to the other side of the room. And now bring this experience back to its original position, restoring it to how it originally was. And I wonder what would happen if you were to make this experience into a spherical ball. Take the shape of this experience and make it into a ball floating in front of you. And then what happens if you make it spin faster and faster and faster? So fast that it seems to hum. And stop that now and break this experience exactly as it was originally, restoring it to its original size and shape and place. And just sit for a moment with this experience. this specific experience of a time when you allowed yourself to play. Slowly start to come back now. Bring your awareness back to your body as you let go of that experience, allowing it to return to wherever it was stored before. And start to notice your body again, bringing yourself slowly back to your body and starting to extend your awareness back out into the room, slowly coming back up, all the way up, feeling yourself rising all the way back, coming all the way back up into the room, only as fast as feels safe and comfortable to do so. Taking all the time that you need in the next 10 seconds or so to slowly bring yourself all the way back up into the room where you can open your eyes and rejoin us as we wrap this video on this beautiful Thursday evening.
Thanks, Jack.
No worries, man.
Hope
you guys enjoyed that.
That was wonderful.
Thanks.
I know I did.
Enjoyed that?
Yeah, it was terrific.
Great. Thanks for getting the video too, by the way. Caught that.
I did have a little peek.
Oh, whoops.
Terrific. Cool.
Any concluding remarks or thoughts?
Nah.
Cool.
I'm good.
Cool. I am too. I think we covered a lot. So, yeah. Have a play around, guys. Try and have a bit of fun with things. It's the end of the year. Come on. We can afford to loosen up a little bit at this stage, I think.
That's right.
And I wonder how much easier, like all of our preparations and Christmas things and end of year wrappy things can be if we can just allow ourselves to, kind of like take it a little bit less seriously.
That's right. Yeah.
And just have a bit more fun with it.
Yeah. Totally. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me this year. This is my last one for the year, so thank you. This has been amazing. An amazing experience. Thank you, especially to you, Jack.
My pleasure.
But also to anyone who's watched them along the way. It's been a really cool experience and something I've really enjoyed. So maybe turns out I do have a closing remark. Thank you.
There you go. Awesome. And I'll be back next week, 7:30 again, for the final one of the year, because I'm going on holidays after that. So
nice. Cool.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.